I believe we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Magnus Archives RPG Tangled in the Web crowdfunding campaign AMA. My name is Teri. I'm the managing editor at Monty Cook Games, and I'm so excited to be here with you alongside the masterminds of the Magnus Archives podcasts, Alex Newall and Jonathan Sims. We also have Olivia, who, if you've been in the Backer Kit campaign, has been chatting with you in the community section, and also on social media. And she will be moderating this awesome AMA. If you are unaware, we are running a crowdfunding campaign on BackerKit for the Magnus Archives RPG. Every pledge will have access to stickers, really cool Magnus Archive stickers that we unlock at every stretch goal. And every pledge will also get a digital copy of the core book so you can get playing the game right away. The campaign is funding some more supplements for the game, including supplements that Jonny is adding to. So I'm really excited to have you here with us. And Olivia, do you want to start out with some of the questions that you've seen so far?
Yeah, happy to do so. We have a couple questions from our team, and then we're also taking questions, social media, BackerKit, wherever you want to send them to us. Just make sure to tag us so we don't miss them. Let's start off with something kind of silly. So something we've done over this campaign is that every single stretch goal we've unlocked also unlocks an exclusive sticker. And we've unlocked, I believe, over a dozen designs so far. I think we're at 13 or 14. So let's ask this question. Jonny and Alex, do you identify as a dice goblin or a sticker dragon?
Uh, uh, do you want to answer this first, Alex, or shall I?
Sure, sure. Dice Goblin in the it's very, very difficult to be this anxious and own stickers because you have to get them right. And if you're gonna get them right and you get them wrong, they're wrong forever. Whereas dice, you can roll again and again. So, would I love to be a sticker person? I would. Um, I think I've stuck something like three stickers in my life and regretted it every time because I got it wrong. Wasn't quite straight, wasn't quite right. So, I think I default to dice, which is kind of pathetic when I think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been role playing for since I was a kid, so just I'm currently looking to see which of the many boxes of dice. I think this one's probably the one I'd just display because this has maybe this has I would say the nicest sort of 5%er in my current dice bag as appropriate for a fantasy campaign. This one is sort of the lower mid tier. So I've got this sort of tea box, and you can see I've got them broadly. So there's obviously fantasy ones here. Down here is like Old West, so mostly like Deadland stuff with a couple of like bullet dice and steampunk stuff. This one is horror, so you got like blood splatter, you got Cthulhu style stuff. Cyberpunk down here. This one is for proprietary dice, so you got your some fudge dice, you got stuff for Shiver, you got various like you got the Star Wars one, you got the D6 from the box set of Paranoia that has the little friend computer eye, and the one
I'm
there
loving
is
how
for
different our approaches are, Johnny. You've got all these different sets. I genuinely buy them wholesale by the pound.
I like don't get me wrong, I didn't buy any of these. This is what happens when, for 36 years, people know that dice are a reliable, good present for you. Which is definitely not a complaint. But like, I haven't needed to buy dice for years. Um, and there's also a really nice section that I almost never open, but I really like that it exists, which is at various points in the last 10 years, three separate friends have tried to make their own dice, and in each case have like gifted me like handmade dice, which are rarely quite the right choice for a game, but they are absolutely lovely and just like it really makes me happy that they're there.
I do. I absolutely love that you immediately like dice. One moment, please, and you just pulled them out.
Yeah, well, the thing is,
I love that your
what I
first
can't.
fun question. We're going to go on for like a good solid half hour
This
because we don't know
this
how
is
to shut up.
fantastic. This is great.
Here it is, because there's also this, which is just full of my misc
Now
dice,
we're
the ones that
talking.
don't have sets
Now we're
anymore.
talking.
The ones that had sets and now are. Although I do have a couple of oddities in here. This is an old D7.
Boo! Boo!
Which or a little D16, which doesn't look as interesting because it's just it looks like a D10, but it's just got 16 rather instead. Yeah, so this is just my box of like not exactly rejects, just the stuff that doesn't really have a
Dice purgatory versus dice jail, right?
It's more like dice retirement, you know?
Mm.
Like they're not really gonna see active use anymore because like I don't have the full set of them, so you know, I'd get confused if I tried to include that. Like I generally go with either poly sets or D6s in a dice bag. Anyway, this has gone on a little bit too long because I don't have many stickers. I like stickers, but I'm very hard on things that I own. So
You are like
generally,
you are a really heavy use case for anything that you touch.
I honestly don't like I have just this entropic field that anything that I use or possess wears out faster than it really should do.
You can
Which means
say
that
it. Rot
anything that
flourishes in your wake.
entropy. You know, we avoid the rot we avoid rot. But it does mean that like anything I put a sticker on, it's probably like wearing away quite quickly. I do like them though. I wish I had. I used to really love those sticker albums that you got as a kid.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Well, before we move on to some of our more maybe topical questions, I have a follow-up for that. When I buy dice sets, I like to buy sets that associate with this character that I'm playing. So
Mm.
if you guys designed a set that was an Archivist set or was a Martin set, what would they look like?
Um, so
Good question.
it's actually unfortunately I think the bag my current dice bag is downstairs because I was playing on Monday and haven't brought it up to the office yet. But someone did send me like a set that they'd made like a professional dice which had it was sort of uh red and gold, and all the D6s were like the pips were little eyes, which is really lovely. And I think probably for the archivist something like that, except more in sort of um, black and green rather than red and gold. Like I think that's
Well,
a
you and I go
pretty
in very different directions.
well.
Okay,
I mean, I'm just cleaving to the aesthetic guidelines, to brand guidelines. I'm cleaving to brand guidelines here, Alex.
you know what? That's true. No, for John, I'd immediately get the heaviest, like solid friggin' tungsten stuff, but then I'd put the thinnest layer of resin over the top, so they look like they're just kind of, vaguely on-brand pound dice, and you'd pick them up and you're like, oh my God, ugh, so unnecessarily heavy. And mine's is easy. You just put actual tea in there and just let it slowly go really, really manky. You know, the liquid-filled ones. Except obviously it'd
Ooh.
separate and curdle over time. Yeah, I think I'd go with that.
Thing is, I love a liquid filled dice, and I have a couple, but the idea of it being tea just makes
Dairy.
Ugh. Ugh.
See, that,
Ugh.
exactly. It's wholesome in concept, and when you really start to dig down, it's not.
I love that answer. That sounds terrible. I could just imagine rolling them and one of them bursting and just yeah, that sounds like it's going to be
Yeah,
a
you get
great
it. You get
great
it.
time.
Yeah, well, the
Well,
thing is, like, it's so I'm going, hey, Magnus Archives, that's a thing people like the aesthetics of. What would some dice be that are like within the aesthetics and pretty cool? And Alex is like, oh, the Magnus
Within the
Archives
rules
is
of your
horror.
question, how can I ruin it for people? That's my
Alex is like,
standard
well, the
method.
Magnus Archives is horror, so what would be some horrible dice?
Yeah, 100%.
yeah,
Yes, good.
I feel like that's malicious compliance right there at its best, and I love it.
See, Olivia gets it. This is all good. It's all good.
Well, on that note, this is a very popular question that we saw throughout the whole campaign, pretty much since we introduced the sticker as part of the stretch goal. And it's for Martin. Would Martin give out stickers as part of his job at the Institute? You know, I made a statement stickers. Fans have been speculating about this, if he would give out stickers for
Interesting.
people who come in.
Oh, because it's
I
like
think he
very
would attempt-
American I voted stickers, right?
It's-
Like,
Exactly.
It's
I think he'd
interesting.
attempt execute poorly and then fail. Is
Well,
my
the thing
honest
is,
answer.
here, like in Britain, in Britain, I would say that the sort of the big IX stickers are like from the dentist. Like as a kid, you often get like
Yeah.
little stickers from the dentist. And like I can see the argument that giving your statement is akin to getting your teeth cleaned. Um, I think the thing is, I think he would give out. I gave a statement at the Magnus Institute, and all I got was this lousy stickers. But then would stop after about a month because everyone he gave a sticker to would mysteriously have gone missing.
Oh, you've gone. Yeah, I have to admit, I would have immediately introduced a horrendous complication. My brain
Yeah.
immediately went to dentist as well, but I was like, yeah, he'd just get hold of some surplus ones. And, I love my cross out dentist, put archivist, except people are still going around with a tooth shaped sticker for nothing to do with teeth.
Yeah.
They were cheap and then they were there. They were in a charity shop. But
Yeah.
I agree that no matter how it's introduced, that the buy-in would be poor and the end
Yeah,
result
the
would
thing
also
is,
be
the thing is,
poor.
like the rules of the universe, the rules of the Magnus universe mean that, like, would Martin do it? Yeah, probably. Would he and the people he gave stickers to be punished for it? Yeah, also probably.
Oh, but in like 2 seasons' time after introducing the stickers, they prove incredibly helpful for like navigating tunnels by leaving a trail of stickers or something.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
would
At some
absolutely
point,
smoking gun that.
yeah, at some point, like Martin's been like nabbed or something, and people realize because there's one of his stickers like stuck on
100%.
something notable.
100%. 100%.
I love the canon universe of stickers that we've created here. We really got into how these stickers would be utilized.
Well, the thing is, this is because you're not asking fans who care about Martin. You are asking storytellers who are like, "Oh, what's a horrible story we could do with these stickers?"
You know, valid point. That I didn't think about that. I was expecting like, oh yeah, that would be so fun and cute, and I forgot who I was talking to. So that's on me. That's on me, guys. Well, if we're ready to transition a little bit, maybe to get to something a bit more meaty than stickers and dice, as much as I'm really enjoying talking about it. One question that we've gotten is, how did you guys get into role playing? And then if you guys want to talk about a little bit more, what made you kind of initially think that the Magnus Archives should be a role playing game?
Good question. I strongly suggest, Jonny, you go first because my story into RPGs will derail any conversation it's dropped into.
Sure. Mine is so my dad is one of the original nerds. My partner Sash, when we were down visiting my parents at one point, found all these old sort of collections of puzzles and games magazines from the 70s. Back when there in Britain there was a single magazine for chess, war games, board games,
Oh yeah, the chess
crosswords.
magazine.
Like, yeah, well, no, just like literally every sort of
Yeah,
game
yeah, yeah.
because like they could all fit inside a single magazine. And we found this article that was like, if you were interested in our reporting on Tony Barth's Hyboria campaign, you might be fascinated by a new game coming out of America called Dungeons and Dragons, a war game where, strangely enough, you play only a single miniature. So, my dad's been like role playing basically since it was a thing. So I came up playing like Traveller and first edition Wolfrup and like a bit of Call of Cthulhu and all this sort of thing. And so like it's more like I've kind of always done RPGs to a certain degree. There was a period there was a period between like 17 and 19 where I decided I'd grown out of it, and that like, oh, that's RPGs, that's kid stuff. And then at uni, I overheard some of my friends talking about starting a role playing campaign, and like they were so misguided about how it all worked. I was like, well, guess I'm back in. Um,
Oh, bless you!
uh,
Had to correct them on their
yeah,
role play.
I had to. Yeah, I was 20 years old. Of course, I had
They were
to.
having fun
Uh,
wrong, guys.
yeah, no, they weren't. They weren't. Yeah, they would have like. They just didn't understand. They didn't understand. They didn't have my years of experience. Um, and so to a certain degree, the first question I ask about anything is, should this be an RPG? And like, interestingly, we had a lot of conversations about making Magnus Archives an RPG very early in its life, and then almost none until Monty Cook approached us, because it exploded, and it became big enough that it very quickly became obvious that any RPG we tried to do with the Magnus Archives, given that Rusty Quill is not an RPG company, would be like just too would have to be too big a scope. So like when Monty Cook approached us, and obviously, as a lifelong role player, loved Monty's work, um, it was kind of a no-brainer.
Um, my route's a little more atypical. Um, so I'd never heard of. I mean, I was a wildly out of touch youth, and then hit uni and was like anime. Is it pronounced anime? Anupaga. Oh, I'd love to try Anupaga.
Anime, it's anime.
Oh, and I'm sorry. Yes, and for me, I, I was cast in a play about a series of RPG players who go start attending self-help group therapy together. And in order for me to play that, the director was like, "You don't know what any of this is, do you?" No, fine, fine. So the director ran an RPG to teach me what an RPG was, to be in a play about them going for self-help. And then play was fine, but I was like, this thing that they're seeking self-help for, that's apparently addictive and destroying their lives. I'd like more of that, please. Oh, that's interesting.
So was it an
So then
anti RPG morality play?
basically, yes.
Like the old Darkest Dungeons chick tract.
In fairness, the big twist at the end was them realizing that the person selling them on self-help was a massive, massive insecure dweeb who just needed a good RPG. So, it all comes out in the end.
Hmm.
But yeah, I begged, borrowed, and just asked around for people until someone took pity on me and introduced me. And then I'm one of those dickheads who thought, oh, I can do this for an audience, and then I've now done it for camera more than
Oh,
I've
what a
done it
fun
privately.
hobby. How can I monetize it? Said
You
Alex.
know what? I should commodify myself. What a great idea. That'll have no consequences. But yeah, in terms of the sort of Magnus as an RPG, pretty much bang on. There's one slightly boring insight as well, which is whenever you're like discussing merch and stuff like that, often you get something that are called like frozen rights. And the idea behind that is that, like, listen, we'll make this thing, but we don't want you to make, say, an RPG, because if you do, all the attention will go over there. And it just so happens by fluke that over the years, the thing that kept getting frozen while we were chasing other things was RPGs. And then there was a bit of a planetary alignment. This is very boring, but it's true. There was a bit of a planetary alignment where finally all of that stuff expired at the exact same time that the Monty Cook lined up. And it's like, yes, yes, I would like to do this thing I've wanted to do for 10 years. What a great idea. Let's do that. So, yeah, it all worked out in the end. But I agree with Jonny. I'd have done it like 6, 7 years earlier if it had been an option.
Well, it was incredibly exciting the first time I heard of it after many other discussions. I was the B tier of employees who, after a little while, was like, hey, did you know that we're doing this? And I was like, no. And then I had to sit all that information for a couple months until I could finally tell all of my Magnus Archives obsessed friends who listened to the podcast 4 times, 5 times. And I got to be like, hey,
Too many times.
guess what I get to do for work? So that's pretty exciting.
There is a dark side to it, though, which no one talks about, which is okay, you have given everyone the tools to basically do what we do, which means that everyone's going to realize that they can do what we do. So, it's going to be a war of attrition where we're just going to have to get weirder. It's the only logical step is we're all just going to be racing one another to maximum weird.
The good news is that based on this conversation, I don't think that you are at risk anytime soon of being out-weirded. This has been indicative. Well, if we don't have anything else to say about that, here's a not totally leading question at all, but have you played the Magnus Archives Role-Playing Game? And if so, what do you love about it? And if not, what are you looking forward to the most about it?
I'll happily answer this one first, Jonny, if you want.
Sure.
So this is going to be rather uninspiring. So I have dug around mechanically with it quite a lot. I've been explicitly forbidden from playing for pleasure by my team so that when I am playing it for the first time, we can commodify me some more while I have fun. So I am extremely familiar with it for all of the obvious reasons, and I've dug in and run a few little experiments, but officially, no. I've never played because that would mean that I've violated a rule that I'm not allowed to have fun outside of the camera.
I feel like in my heart, I've played almost every RPG. You know, my love of the hobby, I think, transcends the commonplace conception of playing. The answer is I haven't because for the same reason I don't listen to the podcast.
Oh, you don't have taste.
Yeah. I find I don't know. I find engaging, trying to engage with either my work or stuff heavily inspired by my work as a I find it is work. I don't think that it is an RPG I could really play purely for pleasure. I'd be very happy to play it like on stream or like this sort of thing. And I've read the book cover to cover, and I'm really really impressed with what's come out. But in terms of actually sitting down and playing a game of the Magnus Archives RPG, I would feel I think I'm just too British. I would feel
You don't want to play a game of, hey, everybody look at me.
Yeah. A game of like, hey, look at this cool universe I made.
I would say, having done it in a, like, again, forgive me, in a work capacity rather than for a pleasure capacity, it's real easy to generate content using the tools in there in a way that, again, it's just like, well, goddamn, I kind of wish we'd have started with this instead of having to make the show first.
Yeah,
because it's a lot easier.
Crucially, I have played a whole bunch of Cypher System, and it's one of the reasons that I'm so sort of like chill about it is because I'm like, no, I know Cypher System, I really like it. I had a really good few sessions of Predation a while back, which is like one of the other settings that I really rate. If you like sci-fi weirdness and dinosaurs, it's a great one. But that's not what we're selling at the moment. Don't buy that book. Instead, back Tangled in the Web.
If you felt so
or do both. You know, like
that was almost really good, Jonny. It wasn't, but it almost was.
Yeah, well, the thing you have to, like, fundamentally, you don't need money. Monty Cook needs money. Monty Cook needs money to create beautiful, beautiful games. Sorry, I was told by Alex at the start that I needed to push to sell. He said that I'm not very good at plugging things, and I disagree. So, crucially, I think the moral of the story is bankrupt yourself.
Stop talking.
Okay.
I
feel like I'm receiving mixed messages from you here, Alex.
Here.
This is a bad time to talk about you can split up your pledge into 4 payments.
Into 4 payments over time.
Just over time.
Before this, I was actually given a bit of advice that was like, listen, go in there, ask them questions, but like, just let them talk. They'll be fine. Say something. They'll say something interesting. And I was, and so
Goddamnly not.
Fine is fine is a very broad word, you know?
To loop to the
As a
actual
writer.
question for a second, I would say the materials I've seen for Tangled in the Web have prompted an idea for a campaign, which I'm not going to talk about here because it might end up getting used for something. Specifically, the smoker.
Mm.
In a similar way that people familiar with me before go, oh, I know what you're getting at. Like a light bulb went on, so I won't talk any more about that. But yeah, suffice it to say, I might be playing that one. I think I have ideas. I have thoughts on that.
that's pretty exciting. I have a couple more mechanical questions for you guys, if that sounds all right. Some of them are from us, some of them are from people who want advice on their games. The most fun one I have is if you were to play or in your actual games, which type would you be most interested in playing? Those four types are investigator, protector, elocutionist, which I was very careful to not write electrocutionist, and occultist.
I
I'd
would probably.
yeah, after you.
Oh, sorry, please.
No,
No, after you. I
No, I
insist.
insist now. No,
No,
no, this is
I
this
wouldn't.
is
I wouldn't dream of going first, Alex.
that's a very eloquent way of saying it. So I'm guessing elocutionist, Johnny.
Actually, occultist. Largely because if we're playing Magnus Archives, I know too much about the setting, so I would want to play the character type that sort of allows me to slightly contextualize my out of game knowledge. As an occultist, I feel like I would have a lot more control over. I wouldn't have to pretend I didn't know any of the stuff I knew out of game. I could like use the character's experience and like interest in the occult to like play around with meta knowledge a bit more, which I think would be quite fun.
I think I'd. So it depends. Normally, I tend towards stuff like protector. The reason I'd probably end up thinking occultist is because I have a slight broken bit of my personality, which is I don't play well with risk reward mechanics because I enjoy the
Mm.
negative consequences more than the positive consequences, which is why Cypher really feeds into a bad part of my psyche, especially with the stress mechanics and so on that are going on with Archives, where it's like, oh, you can do this thing now, or something bad might. I like to do it as many times as I possibly can right now. You do know there's no
For
benefit to
you,
every single one right now,
for
please.
you, the risk is that you might get a reward.
Yeah, exactly. Like I am diving so headfirst into the worst thing I can possibly do when it comes to mechanics. Like I feel like I would get to like those real high tier negative consequences and just speed run to them. So I happen to know that occultist probably gives me the edge to give myself the most negative consequences the quickest. Um yeah,
So
I'm
you'd be
not a
using
normal
the
player.
avatar character option as well onto
I mean,
that.
obviously, immediately, yes. Like that's not a question. That's not a choice. I'd love to claim that I'm, capable of a basic amount of self-control, but no. I absolutely want to turn around and go, "Oh God, am I an avatar of like plumbing?" And then that's a win for me. That's a good thing. Like, what are you gonna do?
Well, that's fascinating to learn about you guys. I have some more questions here that we took from the chat. Someone asks, I think their username was not brought over. I apologize if this was your question. But do you have any advice for portraying the extinction in the RPG?
Oh, good question. Um, I
Hmm.
do, but I'd like to do you the courtesy, Johnny, because I've been
No,
monologuing a
no, no.
bit on
If
this
you've
call, I
got
think.
something, if you've got something in the chamber, go. I'm gonna need to have a think.
So the extinction, when you're dealing with it aesthetically, is more nuanced than you might think. And it is perfectly possible to make something that technically has all the trappings of what you would think, and it doesn't land right. It's really easy to accidentally make lonely. It's really easy to accidentally make the desolation when you're aiming for extinction. Um, I'd argue that to capture it right, you've got to approach it a little bit more cerebral. And I'd say that one of the things that I find is a pretty solid run through line to hang off if you're ever having to do extinction stuff is the hubris element. The desolation is bad thing happens. The lonely is you are isolated because of this thing, right? Extinction, at least in the way it's presented in archives, it doesn't have to be, but the way it has been historically dealt with, there's always that element of like, this has been brought on. It isn't a passive thing. Like, this has been caused. The second that you even did say a climate change statement without that line of this is our fault, it starts to feel more like desolation. Desolation is visited upon you most of the time, whereas extinction is more like you have failed to turn back despite having the option multiple times. And that's a bit of a nuanced one, but generally speaking, the second that you have that, I have plowed on towards this situation, it automatically starts to make it feel a lot more extinction because it leans into that inevitability and again that hubris and the trap of believing something is inevitable despite the fact that you're choosing it every single day by doing stuff. But again, that's a very cerebral answer, and I suspect people are more like, go creepy with seagulls or whatever. But that's the rule that I use is I'd like to have a hubris line, otherwise it's going to lead to a different one.
I have a couple of. I have. I think a sort of a research-based answer and an aesthetics-based answer. Um, the research-based answer is have a look into historical apocalypses, and like both
We've
ones
talked about
that did occur and ones that people believed might occur, because there has never been a generation that did not have a heavy section of them that believed that they were going to be the last.
Yeah.
Certainly in sort of Anglophone, like you know, Anglophone sort of Western whatever civilization, we've traditionally been a culture that believes the world is about to end. And that has taken many, many forms throughout history. And looking at those forms and like how and the thing is, often people haven't been entirely wrong. The apocalypse as a transformative thing. You look at the Black Death and like you look at how the Black Death affected Europe, and you tell me that that wasn't the end of the world. You know, so like looking at how apocalypses tradition like throughout history have been viewed, have been expected, and have happened, I think gives you a really strong thematic grounding in thinking through the extinction. Um, Aesthetically, trash, garbage. I think that the 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 aesthetic of an apocalypse tends to be quite dry in like your classic genre fiction, in a way that I think actually like a lot of this world is choking on wet garbage.
The
And
end of the
I
world
think that's
coming and it's moist. Is that what you're saying?
it's a bit gooey. It's got that horrible bin juice at the bottom of it. And I think that that is quite a strong aesthetic like marker to draw on.
Oh,
Well,
actually, that's
that is
triggered one
just
for
a
me.
lovely mental
Oh,
image.
sorry.
No, please go ahead.
There's one aesthetic which comes up repeatedly, which is one that I've lent on before as well, which is the humans being gone is not the big deal in the situation. Always feels quite extinction to me. The second
Mm,
that it's like this awful thing has happened. Oh, also there's no humans left. Feels more extinction because again, you head into stuff like post-humanism and all kinds of stuff, but like basically the idea that you have made a problem bigger than the thing that caused the problem is also part of it,
yeah.
where it's
It's
not
it's
just
that
post-apocalyptic, it's you being gone is not the story here.
Yeah, and it's the fascinating and like quite like am I allowed to swear here?
That's
Sure,
such
yeah.
a polite
Whatever.
way of prefacing it.
The mind fuck
Yeah.
of the fact that we are now scientifically in the Anthropocene era, that that like geologically and like environmentally, the thing that nature is adapting to is humanity. Like animals are evolving to sort of like in relation to the things that we have done to the world. But the thing is, if every human was gone tomorrow, the Anthropocene era wouldn't be over. You know,
Mm,
the like
100%.
the effects that humanity has had on the environment are epochal in a way that people aren't necessarily. You know?
Yeah. I 100% agree on that one.
That is just the tiny bit haunting. So I will be thinking about that for the
Yeah.
rest of the day. Thank you. I appreciate that. I don't even know what to ask next. I'm just thinking about humans' effects on the environment and
Look,
animals.
I mean, the
it's the
thing is, you
easiest
ask a,
one to write by a massive margin. It's like
you ask
write me a creepy extinction story, and you just write the words "look out the window."
Yeah, it's like you ask a pair of horror writers. Like the thing is, you can ask a pair of horror writers anything, but you know the what you're getting back might be might be a bit much sometimes.
At least it's not boring. You got that going for you. Um, Continuing on the theme of mechanics and sort of looking at the role-playing game, Full Moon Umbre asks, if a team of archival assistants were to have marks split between them, would it still work for the mass ritual? I was thinking of doing something like that for a campaign.
Uh, yeah, probably. Would that be like it's remember like this takes place in the world like if you're GMing, this takes place in the world of your creation. The metaphysics and the specifics of the metaphysics are yours to twist. If that like that, I'll be honest, that sounds like a really cool campaign. So I'm gonna
My
say yes.
So my brain immediately goes to a specific place, and I'm gonna offer a piece of advice which will make it wildly unpleasant in the best way possible. What that screams to me is enmeshment as a result of group trauma. It is a psychological phenomenon, enmeshment, which is where you're all forced together for too long in too rubbish circumstances, and it all starts getting unpleasant where even good people start just eating one another up. It's a problem, you know. Humans aren't meant to
Well,
be in a pressure cooker together.
it's like the horrible form of trauma bonding, I guess. Like
Exactly, exactly.
anti-trauma bonding.
It is. It's so like that form of enmeshment is a form of trauma bond. If you lean into that via your mark stuff, oh, there you go. Now you can hit them high and low. Brutal psychological examination and deconstruction, and also
Kick him in the
awful,
nuts.
terrifying, existential nut kicking. Yeah. But again, it requires a specific group. But the second that you're talking about sharing them out, I know that any player would be like, we can lessen the impacts by sharing them out. As a GM, my brain immediately goes, wicked. So, what that's going to do is it's going to force you all into this incredibly unhealthy, codependent group collapse. I would lean in that. But it requires a group you
Hmm.
can trust.
Does it share or does it multiply?
Exactly.
That's pretty awesome. Does it share? Does it multiply?
A problem shared
Um,
is a problem doubled. Always in games. Always. Always.
it's fine. You can just give them a couple XP, call it a GM intrusion. Then move on.
I mean, yeah.
Exactly.
Ideally with a little bit of stress, and then let them decide whether they want more stress for better rewards, and then watch one of your players just burn themselves up.
It sounds
Like,
just like the
yeah,
heroes, you keep going farther and farther. How far are they willing to push themselves for
yeah.
just a
It's
couple
like,
Exactly.
can you do this mechanically? Yes. With like, lore-wise, also yes. Thematically, oh yes.
Yeah, you're treating a group as a person. Brilliant. Immediately start examining what the negative consequences of that are.
Yeah. Hey, maybe the merging isn't just at the physical level. Sorry, just at the spiritual level. Maybe there's some like weird physical or mental stuff as well.
I'd start having them all sharing mannerisms.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Someone wakes up with someone else's hand.
That's yeah, and just get bigger and bigger with it.
It's a
Where it's like you're
small, it's a
trying to
small, like,
treat.
because the thing is, like, you would notice,
But
probably. But,
how well
like,
do you know the back of your hand really?
yeah.
Like really, when you get like, I mean, how often do you really look at it?
I was just thinking, literally last night I was chatting about, and I'm gonna expose myself right now because I don't know the episode name, but the episode where someone's body parts keep getting cut off in accidents and then like healing immediately.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
That is,
Piecemeal?
I think
yes,
it's piecemeal.
that is genuinely, we were talking about like what's the worst curse in fiction you've ever heard of, and that's got to be the worst one. That has always stuck with me as just being terrible. So kudos. It's haunting.
Counterpoint. You know, body parts being cut off, horrible. Body parts being added.
Also horrible.
No, it depends on the
Yeah,
quality of the
obviously
body
also
part. Okay. If you're just promising me an extra really, really like handsome hand every day, I think I can take quite a lot of
it
extra
depends
hands
where I'm
before it's
putting
a
the
problem.
hand.
I'm gonna be honest, like I'm a very, very busy person. I think I could push that further than most.
Look, if I'm giving you another nose, but it's like on the underside of your arm, that's bad. Like, not only can you not lower your arm properly, you've got to constantly be smelling your own armpits.
Yeah, but then the human brain kills out that smell, so all I get is really nuanced takes of
Not if I
like
give you a
really
second
new smells.
brain.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is this is more of a negotiation, right? I do have a price. We just have to home in on it.
But like traditional horror contests when it comes to body horror, it's like eyeballs and teeth.
Yeah,
And like having extras of either of those just that
yeah.
doesn't seem fun.
It's like there is a little horror trick, and this is for all you Magnus GMs out there. There's a little horror trick if you're like, oh, I need to make this a little bit more horrifying, but I just don't know. Add some human teeth. Human teeth where there shouldn't be any human teeth. Just makes it immediately horrifying, you know? Oh,
I think my example is more
what's weird
basic than
about
yours.
this? What's weird about this beach? The sand is human teeth. Oh, what's weird about this fish? Oh, it's got human teeth in its mouth. It's just smiling like a big
Teeth
human
is a
smile.
go-to, I got to admit.
Yeah. Like it always feels a bit cheap, but also it always works. Like it's never not a little bit horrifying.
Oh, and in visual art, it's giving hands to a thing that shouldn't have hands, but it has to be specifically hands. You know, cats
Mm.
with hands for paws, deer with hands for antlers. Like that's always an easy go-to.
It's because it's all small category error stuff.
Yeah,
And like your category error is sort of your core of like that feeling of ugh. Um
I
and
literally
like
wrote a thesis on this. I'm so happy this has
yeah.
come up.
And yeah, human teeth, human hands, eyeballs are good ways to add little category errors to things in ways that make you feel very unpleasant. Brackets good.
Well, you guys have accidentally stumbled onto a really interesting piece of little MCG lore, and anyone watching who goes to conventions might have heard this, is that years ago, someone came up with the question, would you rather have as a pet a cat who can talk or a dog with like human hands for feet? And we have asked that question for
Cat with a human face.
I've been corrected. It's a cat with a human face who can talk,
Yeah.
or a
Because
dog with human feet, human
I was
hands for
gonna
feet.
say, like, my cats can basically talk already. They're very vocal, and they don't have a lot of interesting things to say, but they say them a lot. Um,
I think cat with human face is an easier sell, and I think I'm one of the few who'd prefer a dog that can climb trees.
for me, the question is whose face, you
Oh,
know?
great point.
Like,
Oh, I oversimplified.
not all human faces are created equal.
I don't want a cat with your face, Johnny. I really don't want a cat with your face.
Wow, wow. I wasn't like, I'll be honest, I hadn't even that wasn't I wasn't pitching that. Feel like I caught a stray there, but okay.
Oh,
Um,
I couldn't handle that, dude. I couldn't. Just all of the attitude of a cat plus you. No. It'd be the same as I know you wouldn't want a dog with my face. That overburden of energy would drive you up the wall. You'd hate it. It'd be awful.
I mean, I guess, but like to be fair, the dog wasn't no, there wasn't going to be a face on the dog. The dog's got the hands, and I'd be happy to have a dog with your hands. You
Oh,
know,
you say that. I got very, very stumpy, and they're not good hands. Very clumsy.
so I can't
Why
imagine
you
the dog
needed the
is
extra?
like the dog's not like a concert pianist.
Yeah, but it could be if you got a dog with better hands.
I don't think that's I don't think that's I don't think that's dogs, mate.
Don't forget that it's hands on all 4 feet.
I've been corrected again. It's hands on all 4 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I want the
no,
dog
I
with hands on
assume.
all 4 feet. I want a dog that can climb like a chimp. I'm here for that. We would have so much fun.
See,
Vertical
my dogs are not
like-
smart. They would just have the ability to get into all of the rooms they have wanted to get into for a long time and not been able to.
Yeah, but they wouldn't know what to do with it. Think how happy they'd be. They'd just look at like the toilet and be like, "I'm here now, and I don't know what's happening, but I like it." It'd just be constant joy. They'd see a drain pipe, and then your dog would be up on your roof in like a day. It'd be amazing.
For me, I like in the abstract, neither is the front runner. I would have to meet them both, you know, because it depends on whose face, depends on what breed of dog as well, you know.
As a pet, where do you see yourself in 3 years?
Like a huge Saint Bernard with human hands is a very different proposition to a yappy little Chihuahua with human hands.
No, Chihuahua
especially if the
human hands is bad. No.
Yeah, well,
change my-
exactly.
Oh,
Exactly,
don't like
mate.
that.
Yeah, I've got to meet him. I've got to meet the dog. I've got to meet the cat. I've got to see what sort of face and voice the cat has, and I've got to have a look and see what sort of breed, like, what's the vibe of the dog. Like, I'll be honest, there are some breeds of dog I wouldn't want to own whether or not they had hands, and some breeds of dog I'd be like, you know what? I don't think the hands are going to help you. So it's not a question I feel I
What
can answer.
dog takes with Jonny? God. I just insulted you at a personal level, but casting aspersions on dog breeds, that is big.
Well, no, there are
big
some
energy on the
that
internet.
need a lot of some that need an awful lot of like time and energy and attention that I don't feel qualified to provide. Like I couldn't give a husky a good home, for instance. Huskies are
God, a husky
incredibly
with-
anxious.
Oh, a husky with hands, that's not
Hands or not,
nice.
hands or not. Huskies are very like anxious dogs that need a lot of experience and patience, and I simply wouldn't have like with the way that me and Sasha's lifestyle is set up, we just wouldn't be able to give a husky a good home, whether or not
Could
it
you-
had human hands.
Could you? Yeah, but could you imagine a husky wringing its hands? Oh,
I
No, I
can. I
couldn't
can.
handle that.
Well, yeah.
you've given me a lot to think about, Jonny. Not in a good way,
Mhm.
not in a helpful way.
That was beautiful. I just want to say that was like spoken poetry aloud. I
Oh.
really, really, really enjoyed that.
Well, thank you.
Teri, we cannot hear you. I cannot hear you.
I was gonna say, you've given me the worst mental image of a Chihuahua walking on human hands, like, in the Addams Family,
Yeah.
Mhm.
just
Because the hands
horrible.
would be
Thank
so much
you.
bigger than the Chihuahua.
Yes, right?
I think it would be
Yeah.
baby
Scale
hands.
scale makes a big difference there. I underestimated that.
Yeah.
I feel like a very large dog would have to have like Andre the Giant hands, whereas a Chihuahua would have little baby hands. But perhaps
Potentially, but we just don't know until we meet
What
them.
if it's the other way round? You know, what if your large St. Bernard is going around with tiny little toddler hands just falling all over the place? This
Yeah.
gets horrible.
This feels like a great jumping off point for a Magnus GM watching to create a really, really
Also-
terrible statement.
Also, ultimately, like going to the vet would be a lot easier with a cat with a human face.
Oh
Because
God, yeah.
a dog with
Yeah.
human hands poses a huge number of like additional, like the vet probably wouldn't know what to do, especially if something started to go wrong with the hands. Whereas a cat with a human face and voice, you could just be like, "Hey, what's wrong?" And they'd be like, "Tummy hurts," and you'd be
I
like,
think it's a very bold
mean
assumption
anything
to
weird.
think that a cat would give you information willingly.
"Yeah, I mean maybe, but like it's not gonna make it harder at the vet, you know."
I don't
Be like,
know.
"Oh, you eat
Human
something
mouths
weird,"
are
and they're
fucking
like-
disgusting. Pardon my language.
Yeah, that's true.
Getting
That's
bit
true,
by
actually.
a
And cats
cat with a
do-
human
yeah,
mouth.
yeah.
Oh, no, thank you.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
So since we've been chatting for a little while about this, and I loved it. This is great. I am gonna bring us back to a couple more questions from the
Something
chat,
vaguely
if that's all right
relevant.
with everyone.
Sorry.
That was just my question too. I feel like I commandeered the conversation a little bit out of my own curiosity. But so Link5963 asks, is the Resurrection Mound a good first adventure? Because they were going to start their group there and they felt like it ramped up a little bit quickly. I'm worried that giving them so much supernatural exposure right off the rip would be too much. But looking back at the statements, some of the heavy hitters are really present in the first few episodes of the show. So they would love to hear your thoughts on this. How quickly should you immerse your players in the weird and terrible?
That's a really good question. And do you have an off the cuff answer, Alex, or do you want me to
I do, but
vamp for
if
a
you're
little
already
bit?
going, go for it.
For me, a lot of it depends. There's a lot of factors at play. How the main one being how long are you anticipating this campaign going? Um, Now, you're absolutely right that in the show, you leap right into a lot of the horrible supernatural, like the really explicitly supernatural stuff in the statements, but it doesn't start actually like reaching out and touching your characters for a little while. Um, and so like I think with a very long campaign, you might want a couple of slower burn adventures or some like introductory sessions that are like kind of sort of quasi adventures where like maybe they're not actually fully crossing paths with anything explicitly supernatural. If it's a shorter campaign, if it's I don't know 6 to 12 sessions or something, yeah, you leap right in there because like the game assumes that you're going to be like the game assumes you're going to be dealing with the supernatural for the majority of it in a quite direct way. Like
Yeah.
it is assuming that pretty early in the campaign your players will be discussing the supernatural in quite explicit terms. So I certainly don't think that starting with the Resurrection Mound would lead to a bad campaign. But in a really long campaign where you want to like really stew in some of the vibes, I think you can afford to like drop a couple of sort of quieter pseudo adventures at the start is what I'd say.
Yeah, I think it comes down a little bit to pacing, and I don't just mean pacing in terms of what happens in your plot. So by that I mean, so in screenwriting, there's a mechanism called stealing jeopardy. Once people have pointed out to you, it's going to ruin your viewing of stuff. Stealing jeopardy is really simple. I'll give you the worst example possible. Haha! I finally have you. Oh no! 3 weeks earlier, and then story starts. Stealing
The
jeopardy.
classic stealing Jeopardy in like a narrative thing like the Magnus Archives is when you're like I entered like this all started 3 weeks ago back when I had both arms.
Yeah, perfect. And stealing jeopardy normally is a way to be like, oh, this was a really boring start. So I'm gonna inject 20 cc's of interesting, and it's a promise of going, listen, it's gonna get interesting, but you gotta bear with me.
He's gonna
Um,
have an arm off.
you know it's gonna happen. Wow. Stealing Jeopardy, right? So that's one example of pacing that isn't plot. It's not make sure things happen quickly. It's like, okay, this is a slow start. I'm gonna plop something at the start. I think for something like this, there's a second layer that you have to consider, which is there's a big difference between exposure to the supernatural and exposure to answers.
Mm.
And what you can't do is give everyone answers early. Interestingly, you can have a phenomenally huge amount of supernatural happen, and as long as your character's going like, gosh, this is a lot, you're fine. The problem comes when like 30 minutes in, they're going, oh, right, so I see what we've got here. It's a classic Extinction Lonely hybrid. Yeah, I've seen that before. Car's pregnant, mate. Don't worry about it. We'll get this sorted right away. Like, if give too many answers, and then you've got a problem, right? And that's a pacing problem. It doesn't seem like it at the time. It feels like, oh, there's something broken. No, it's a pacing problem. You haven't spaced your answers out enough.
Yeah.
You have to keep these things in balance. You can have loads of one, not much of the other, but you gotta pace yourself on more than just events happening. There is an informational exchange, and it's the same as like you can't have a horror story where 3 minutes in, half of your characters are dead and like Cthulhu is there, right? You
Yeah.
can, but you're stealing Jeopardy. It's the only way that that really works is you have to find a way to step back, or your story's not actually about that. You yeet them to a different dimension, and now we have our story. But your pacing auto corrects for that. So I get what people are saying with the Resurrection Man. There's a lot of like upfront spook, but you just kind of gotta pace the other elements to accommodate rather than
and like one of the keys
write it off.
is as long as your players aren't finishing the adventure being like, oh yeah, remember what happened with the resurrection mound. As long as they're like, we don't like what names are such a big thing here, and like
Yeah,
role-playing games, like role-playing game rulebooks especially, by their nature as reference documents, are particularly susceptible to this. That everything has to have a name in an RPG rulebook, because you have to look it up in an index, because it has to have it probably has to have a stat block, because it needs to have a title. But it is so crucial you do not let players know what those names are. Let them come up with their own names. Let them conceptualize themselves. Because if you are like, oh, and then the resurrection mound does that, or like like it. I was playing a game with Alex a few days ago. He had us surprised by a whole bunch of rust
I was going to
monsters.
reference this if you didn't. Yeah, carry on.
If he had said 3 rust monsters emerge from the tunnels, we're like, oh, okay, yeah, all right. Gotta be careful of like our gear. We gotta be like, but it wasn't. It was like, oh, a tangle of like insectile limbs and clicking emerged from the wall, and
There
like
was a failed mining operation, and I didn't mention that all of the metal was gone. I just mentioned that everything's now broken.
Yeah, and like it was only later that I was like, hang on.
Yeah, I thought you connected that.
Were those things rust monsters? And I went and I like looked through it, like checked up on the monster manual. I was like, oh yeah, it was rust monsters.
Yeah.
But because like the name wasn't used, it was only ever descriptions. Like if I didn't know the D&D monster manual comparatively well, I'd be like, I'd be spending the entire rest of the campaign referring to it as like those things, those like weird insects, which is exactly what you want. And so like the in the very shorthand answer is you're fine to introduce as much supernatural as you want, as early as you want, as long as you don't let them know its name.
Don't give them a system. Let them figure out their own system and let it be wrong.
Yeah.
I think that ties in great to the fact that, through marketing this campaign, we were originally sort of talking about like how do we talk about the Magnus Archives role-playing game when you're talking to a GM who doesn't have any friends familiar with the source material, and we actually decided that is
That's
the
better.
optimal. Yes,
That's
Oh
better.
yeah, it's by far the optimal case for this RPG. It just is.
To have that ability that you can bring in all these different things and they have no frame of reference for what is going on is just the best way to go about it, I think. Or at least
Also, it gives you the benefit of being a fan of the thing and going, listen, yeah, I like the show, but I hate what they did with the anglerfish. They totally mucked it up. Just do it the way you want. Great. I couldn't agree more. We mess stuff up all the time. Goes with the territory. Do it right this time. They won't know. They'll still think you're a genius. Go for it. For your boots.
Yeah, you could pretend that you made it.
Absolutely. You have our blessing, please. Be the genius of your group.
Speaking of making things, I was wondering, Jonny, if you wanted to talk at all about what it's like to write for these the upcoming books, what you're working on, kind of stuff.
Well, the one of the reasons that that like Monty reached out to me is because I do role playing writing as like what one can rarely be a single sort of like writer these days. Like if you're going to make a living, you generally are end up being like, oh, a script writer and a voice actor and a I've done some work in novels. And one of the things is I've done a decent amount of RPG writing. Myself and my partner run a very small indie press called MacGuffin and Company. So I've written a lot of adventures, a lot of like little settings, little rule systems. So it felt very natural when I was we were talking to Monty about it, and Monty was like, "Do you want to actually write some adventures for it?" Because when the original RPG was being worked on was right at the start of Protocol, where
You
me
were
and Alex
forbidden.
had
You were forbidden.
basically no time to do anything else. Now we don't have a lot of time to do anything else, but we did. But like, there's enough that I can squeeze out a little bit of time to write a couple of fun adventures. And a lot of it was just me being like, you know what, I it, the old archives world, it's a lot of fun to just come up with a horrible thing that's happening and be like, oh yeah, okay, here's the fear, here's the horrible thing, let's go. And it gives me lots of scope to do my favorite thing in RPG writing, which is just make some weird NPCs. Just write weird guys.
You do actually thinking on
I
that.
love
That
to
is
write
your,
a
like,
weird. I
that
love
is
to
your
write a weird
shtick,
guy.
isn't it? Yeah, fair.
But yeah, so I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'm not gonna give any details just yet because I don't know. I want them to be a little bit of a surprise. Um, Also, the other thing that was fun is I've been asked for like I'm doing two locations. I'm doing a layout for the institute, and I'm doing a like Mikhail Salace's warehouses, basically like a compound where what's it called? Is it the merchant or the dealer or the archetype? I forget the archetype name we gave the Mikhail Salace character. Um,
Those
but sorry,
one of those.
yeah, the warehouses they keep all the weird cursed artifacts, and it's quite fun because I'm used to thinking of these places and these things in like storytelling terms. And so thinking of them in RPG resource terms is a very different like it's kind of turning them into and looking at them from a different angle, which is I'm really enjoying. I've had to say like, hey, this floor plan on the Magnus Institute, it might not 100% match up to like every little thing in the podcast because I'm
Okay, that's my
really
one job is to make sure it does, Johnny. So that's my
yeah.
immediate pass back to you.
Well, no, because I'm writing it as I'm explicitly writing it as an RPG resource because the building that we conceived for the podcast is good for a podcast, but I don't know, it needs a few little needs a few little somethings for the for to be like a good RPG resource. There's got to be
You're right.
something
The enormous amount of tunnels underneath, like that's just a Tuesday, right?
well, I mean, like you got to do something with the library, for instance, and like we never did anything with the Magnus Archives library in the
It's true.
podcast, and like I might add some stuff in that makes you go, feel like that might have come up in the podcast. And it's like,
Can
well,
I
it
put a
didn't.
request for a just unnecessarily massive stained glass window?
Yeah, yeah, of course you can. Of course you can. And then everyone will be like, well, why didn't no one mention the weird stained glass window? It's like, because maybe it wasn't there in the podcast, but it's there for you in your RPG.
No, God, no, no, don't do that. No, God, oh.
Well, we touched a little bit on the Magnus Protocol, and someone actually had asked, like, do you think you guys would be interested in, once the podcast is completed, working on a Magnus Protocol RPG, complete with all of Alex's lovely alchemy notes?
So I would be. I'll speak for me, not Rusty Quill, for a second here. I personally would be. I think it would work well. I think it would play well. I think it comes with a couple of caveats. One of which being that I wouldn't touch it until, again, show's basically done. For the same reasons that we've said previously, like this, you're codifying a lot, and if you're just giving people the systems, it gets very easy to just extrapolate, the last third of the show if you're just going to do it immediately. The other thing as well is, and this is going to be a bit of a, okay, this is a real talk moment instead of like ha 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 fun riffs. So serious face on for a moment because it matters a bit, which is alchemy's wrapped up in a lot of bullshit historically, like a lot of you don't want to go near this bullshit. And by that I'm talking like a vast amount of alchemy is like examining and really damaging heteronormative stuff. It gets wrapped up sometimes in a bunch of like bullshit ethnicity, eugenicsy crap. Like it touches on over the years a lot of stuff you don't want to go near. So on the one hand, it's like wicked, this cool, fun system you can play with. Nothing quite makes sense, which means you can make it mean what you want. Yeah, da, da, da. Unfortunately, a lot of crap people over the years have used it for that reason. So it would require a bit of nuance, and I would probably like, for instance, as a request, put at the start like we should probably warn people, hey, if you're gonna dive deep into this alchemy stuff, like there be dragons in the real history here. Like consume with care, otherwise you're gonna go down some horrible rabbit holes. Because like full disclosure for our series Bible stuff, like I put explicit like don't bother looking at this stuff. It's horrible. There's nothing good. It's not good. Just sack it off. Let's pretend that doesn't. Let's don't deal with that. And
Also,
it'd need a little bit of pruning, I think, as a
to be completely clear,
empiricism.
Like I and this is not the first time it's come up. I feel like Alex's alchemy notes have achieved this sort of weird like mythic status among
Shut up, dude! It's my entire mystique at this point.
But the thing is, like, there was a huge volume of them. Most of them were cut and pastes from books or like wikis or articles, about 40% of which were just highlighted with we don't use this because this is rubbish, or we don't use this because this is really like sexist, or we don't use this because like the word because it's like got some real like 14th century anti-Semitism stuff going on.
Oh yeah, loads of that. Like
if
way more than you would even think going in assuming it.
If you want like Alex's alchemy notes are just research alchemy. Just start reading about it. Like just get some books, read some articles, like, and you will have the full experience of Alex's alchemy notes, except without the bits going. You have to pull the facial expressions yourself.
There was one rabbit hole I specifically fell into whilst trying to avoid that wasn't a horrible one, but this is how alchemy gets you, which is alchemy almost makes sense at all levels. And if you at any point try to collate it into something that starts making sense, you can't help but go, that's almost this. And if that was this, it's this. And you start getting these chains of nonsense. That's where it's most useful. And for an RPG, I think could be really, really interesting. But it's the trap of conspiracy thinking, right? Seeing patterns that aren't there and that kind of thing where handle with care. I'd love to. I think there is something different and interesting in it. It won't be for ages if it's even broached as a topic because it can't be. And if it was, Jonny is right. It wouldn't just be like, here is the great big tome of how to actually do alchemy. Because spoilers is bullshit. There's no answers. I looked real hard. There aren't any.
But we can't say for sure, Alex, because it's all in code.
Oh right, yeah, of course.
We can't 100% guarantee none of them cracked it.
You want to know it's alchemy because every single person learnt this from a mate's friend's gran who had it figured out. And I'm approximating it here, but he has it figured out. That's alchemy. It's the urban legend of science.
Yeah. Like my general take is that once protocol is finished, once it's all closed off, because otherwise, like, never do an RPG on an ongoing piece of media.
No.
Always needs to be finished and closed away before you RPG it. But like I feel like once protocol's done, I think a protocol source book for the Magnus Archives RPG would be great. You
I
know?
agree.
I don't think it's quite at the level because like the thing is, I don't think it's quite at the level of like wanting another game, but a chunky source book for for the Magnus Archives role playing game, I think would be really good.
That said, you can absolutely run protocol via the stuff that already exists. Like you're gonna have to like tweak some things here and bend and shape and so on, but it
Yeah,
isn't.
well,
It's not like you're trying to run like a romantic fantasy in the horror game. Like it's still
yeah, no, I mean like a
playful.
lot of source books will give you alternate rules for stuff. And
Hmm.
like Protocol has some slightly different metaphysics to Archives in a way that like you'd probably want the book to be like, hey, if you're playing in the Protocol verse, here's how here's some rules for how that metaphysics works. But I don't think anything outside the scope of like a source book, because and it's like a lot of the character types are going to be the same because spoiler, those are the sort of character types me and Alex write. You know, like I think you can probably map the
I mean,
OIAR crew to the same broad RPG archetypes as you can the Archives crew.
I would really, really want to introduce a bullshit risk reward mechanic that allows players to really destroy themselves for no good reason. That'd be nice.
I mean, there's
But
already one in Archives. It would just be a
that's
different one. It would just be
yeah,
an
like a
alternative one.
quicker one, like a really, really quick one.
Yeah.
It sounds like, from your research, I have to admit, I'm not very well versed in alchemy myself, but it sounds like alchemy has a lot of the same issues as pirates do, which is really fun in concept. Then you look at the history and it's a lot of bit
I mean,
iffy.
like any historical thing,
Yeah.
like
Right.
I did my own deep dive into alchemy about 10 odd years ago. Well, not quite as deep as Alex's, but I forget what book I was reading. But there was a book that like made a lot of reference to alchemical symbols, and so like there was a while where I just learned all the alchemical symbols, and like I was really fascinated by the like I was really fascinated by the theology of it, and that like it's the same way as I'm fascinated by the humors, whether the four humors. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love historical science systems where like they're wrong, but you get it.
Close but no cigar.
Like you're
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I'm like an early modern doctor. I'm cutting people up. Yeah, there are these four goos inside, and you know what? You probably need the right amount of each goo to be healthy. So if you've got a lot of this goo, and I know you got too much because it's coming out of you right now, maybe you need less of it and more of the red goo, you know? And it's similar
Actually,
with
it's
alchemy.
you
It's
got me
similar with alchemy.
thinking.
It's sorry.
Sorry.
It's similar with alchemy. It's like, oh, hang on. If I put this and this together and I heat them up and I pray over it, it becomes a more pure form of what it was before. Clearly, my prayers combined with the physical reaction are spiritually purifying it, and it's like you're close.
I
I
would
get why
say
you think that.
for anyone interested in it, look at Chinese alchemy. It's not a thing that has been
Mm.
built on in protocol for very obvious reasons. Not our thing to tell. More interesting, more coherent, and a lot more actual legitimate discoveries that were veiled in alchemy. It was just done a lot better in China. So if you're looking into this stuff from a purely historic thing, look at Chinese alchemy. They were a lot less shit than the rest of the world when it came to guessing this stuff.
Well, you brought up plague doctors earlier, and it was kind of the same thing. The plague
Yeah.
doctors were like, "Oh,
Mm.
when we go around these really bad smelling things, we get sick. So it's
You're
the
so
smell.
close.
The smell
Yeah,
You're
makes
so
it."
close.
miasma theory, and you're like, oh, I get why that's where your brain went. Like, I would think something similar, but not quite.
Well, if it's all right with you guys, I think we've got two more unanswered questions from the chat. Maybe we could go through those real quick.
Fine by me. And then I have an AYA, where I want to ask you something.
Ooh.
Intriguing.
Mm.
Okay. Well, Sparrow Sage 1 asks, what has been your favorite tabletop campaign you've been a part of? I assume that means player or GM, and how did it go?
Alex, you want to go first?
I'll have to think for a moment because I've GM'd a lot, and I'm not going to pick one of those. I'm going to pick one of the ones I've played in, but that's a bit further back in the past.
For me, it's a really hard answer. I've run a lot of campaigns, and they've all been great. Um, I think I think the one that will always stick with me the most is probably the year and a half campaign of the Flood that I ran for Deadlands Reloaded in university. Uh, Mainly because it was one of like I mean, in a slightly soppy way, it was the first RPG I ever played with my partner Sasha. Um, and it was one of the things that we first got really close over. We didn't start actually going out for like a year or two afterwards, but you know, so that's got a lot of significance to me.
I think two for me. One, it was a short one shot, but it's something I can actually share and that people have taken part in, which is I think one of them, if not the most fun I've ever had doing RPGs was and this isn't a plug, it's just true, the Rustical Gaming Beowulf special, which was the first time we played with Helen Gould. And it was a little bit of a trial by fire to just see how Helen would play with people, and it was fucking chaos in the best way possible. And that wasn't put on. Like the whole thing is available and you can listen. It was as ridiculous as it sounds, and there was essentially no editing. It was just chaos the whole way through, but in when just the planets align. So I think that was the most fun. I think the most interesting campaign I ever played, and it's not just gold rose tinted glasses. It was the first proper long form campaign I'd ever played, but they did one thing different, which is it was at uni, which means people have a lot more time and are a lot more creative in terms of like the systems and so on. And they ran a war game, and then our characters were in the war game, but meaning that like if the front of the war moved, it was affecting the RPG that we were playing. So there were players who were not in the RPG basically playing this war game that was then dictating the land that we were in and the politics of the world that we were in. But if you needed, you could go talk to that person and they would adopt that character. So it was the equivalent of basically being in Napoleonic France and being like, look, this is getting really inconvenient. Let's go talk to Napoleon. And you could. And then if the battles went well, it would shift. It was very interesting and made it feel very alive. It was very clever. I've never attempted anything like it since. The logistics of it were just awful, but it was wonderful being in a two-tier game where there's two completely unrelated sets of people, and this game over here is absolutely dictating the flavor over here, but not the individual micro events. It worked really well. I'd recommend people try it because I think if it can click properly, it'd work again.
I have a question for you that Alex, that this has made me think of. What is the RPG campaign that you are saddest you never got to complete? Because because obviously, as with all of us, you have, a dozen odd campaigns that never finished. Which of the ones are you saddest about?
So, fun fact: my success rate in seeing things through is really high, disproportionately so.
Oh yeah?
Not just like not intentionally. It's just my artist kind of died on the vein thread is incredibly low. It's really really small, and I don't know what that says about me, but like I think it's 2 ever, which is yeah, it's ridiculously low. I'm a serial monogamist when it comes to RPGs.
The thing is, I've managed to see maybe 10 or 11 RPG campaigns to completion, which I'm like, that is astounding. Like the fact that like I think I've managed to land like 30 to 40% of my campaigns, I'm like super proud of.
So
But
chat's immediately picked up on it. Like Rustical Gaming was eating my life for like 6 years. Like
yeah, I mean, I guess
that's most of my gameplay in the last decade. The one that died that I'd love to do more was, and I genuinely might, maybe even like in a recorded medium, was I'm going to grossly oversimplify it, which is incredibly gothic sliders.
okay.
and it worked in a way that like basically I was asked to start it, and we needed a mechanism for people to um be absent a lot, and like it was a fairly large group, but people kept coming in and out. And so we had a sliders mechanic, and it turns out it just blends really well with like Frankensteinian science and your Draculas and your Van Helsing aesthetic and so on. So yeah, I wish I could have done more with Gothic sliders, but here's a fun fact, and it's just coincidental. Um, I've never run. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think every campaign that I've ever run has ended in either a marriage or a child. Um, Not necessarily of
In
both
the real
players.
world or
Yes, but like as in the real world, as in like as a direct result of that game having taken place, a child has been born or a marriage has taken place, and that was one of the ones where it happened real quick, and then the game
you need
ended
to
up falling
you need to
apart due
play
to
with less horny
logistics.
people, mate. Like I'll
Clearly,
be real.
clearly. But yeah, that's probably the one is wildly Gothic sliders. I've always wanted to do something really unnecessarily like Sleepy Hollow levels of Gothic, and for more
Mm.
than just a one shot. But I've never had the chance. Yeah, like chat's picking up on it again, like Ravenloft and stuff like that. Like I think I could do some stuff with Ravenloft that would make people think twice. How about you? What's the one that died on the vine?
There's a couple that I'm
A game
always
that got
sad
away.
about. Sash used to run a 50 Fathoms campaign,
Oh yeah.
where I was a mumbling sea captain called Obadiah Waits, which was a lot of fun. But probably the one it was the one that was derailed by pandemic. We were doing a Blades in the Dark campaign, and my group they picked the cult gang type. And it was a really like they had this great idea that because the way it works is like the sun's gone out and ghosts can't don't move on unless like this specific organization like melts the body down in the right way. So it's a world overrun by ghosts and there's no sun. And they were like, well, so if everything has a ghost, surely the sun has a ghost. And they decided that they were a cult worshipping the ghost of the sun. And there were so many like really fun, horrible ways I was going to mess with them as their expanding cult and belief gradually sort of began to instantiate the sun back into the world in a ghostly form. There were so many horrible things I was going to do, and I didn't, unfortunately. Plus, they were really like one of them was playing the spider and was like really proactive, so it was a really different way of running a game. I wasn't really like telling a story or guiding them in any sort of way. I was kind of just I was kind of just like maintaining and ticking over all the stuff in the city so I knew what the context was, and then dropping them periodic, like, well, here's the current headlines, here's what's currently going on in the city. And then the mastermind would like be consulting with everyone else and be like, okay, so what's our plan? What are we currently trying to do? Which was a
Sounds like a
really
brilliant
like
Mechanisms album.
yeah, I mean, like I mean, John Harper, the guy who made Blades in the Dark, is really like his world building stuff is really really good. Um, but yeah, and unfortunately, pandemic just came along, and like it never really like by the time pandemic had like, but by the time lockdown was passing, a few of the group had moved out, had moved like away, and we were making plans to head up to Manchester. So just fell by the wayside. But the ghost sun things I was gonna do to them.
That sounds pretty cool. I like the idea of kind of like zombies, but being ghosts, and just living among them and having to.
Well, Blaze in the Dark, the way it works is around Duskval, the big city is the ghost fence, basically these huge electric pylons which keep out the ghosts roaming the rest of the world to try and keep everyone safe. And they have to go and do whaling missions against demons to get blood oil to keep it running. It's a really evocative setting.
That's really cool. Well, I just have one more. This is also from Link 5963. They say that one of the biggest struggles that they had with the setting in general was the role of the investigators. In the show, you see Sasha, Martin, and Tim basically accepting that they are working with the supernatural because you start the story with them already in it. Hey guys, by the way, supernatural exists. That being said, how do you think you can ease the players into their role when they're completely uninitiated in the supernatural, unlike the show?
May I? I have a real quick, easy
Please
fix
do.
for you that just will sort this for you. It's really simple. Initially, don't, and then have it follow them home in a really small and inoffensive way. When it's at home, in a way it's like, I didn't buy that chair. Neither did I, so why is there a chair? That tiny little thing, just that little thing of it being at home, and it hasn't even done anything. Do it again. Now do it a couple more times. It'll be enough. And I know that sounds wildly oversimplistic. There are like better answers. Give them something small and supernatural that is hitting them at home. And they know that really the only way to deal with this weirdness and learn maybe just a little more, just a little answer is, by engaging its investigator stuff. But it's never just a little answer. It's not a chair. It's an extrapolation of this other thing over here. Yeah, send them home with something suspicious. I always do it all the time. Always works. Never failed me in any campaign ever.
Or just, don't soft pedal it. Full immersion immediately. Have one of them eaten.
Have one of
Just,
them
just,
eaten.
just go full bore immediately. None of this
Just
soft.
get every single player to make two characters at the start. Pick one and then.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, then you know what? That would be that could be quite fun. Like just or just yeah, have them make a character. Then in the first game, kill all those characters, every single one, and then have them create second characters that are investigating the horrible murder of the first.
This is just abuse, Jonny. This is just you saying, "Don't make me do it again."
Look, Alex, all RPGs are just, they're like, there's a reason that you talk a lot about like veils and lines and consent in RPGs,
They're
because
all murder boxes.
a lot of it is just being like, hey, GM, just I'm a bit of a masochist. Could you just mess with me a bit?
We also talked about it a little bit earlier, but I also want to mention for Link 5963 that we are making a resource called Enter the Archives through this campaign.
Good shout.
And it is literally designed for helping when you are very familiar with the world and the podcast and the lore, but your players aren't. It's designed to, it's a guide for getting wide-eyed, innocent players into the game without giving too much away, but also making it creepy and effective and all that kind of stuff. So
also do that. Also that. That's also like,
it's almost
that's
like
maybe
people
a better.
who are way better at this than we have ever been, like thought ahead and assembled a really, really coherent and useful tool set to deal with this situation that's perfectly legitimate and didn't give you an answer in.
Excuse you, I'm
30
great
seconds.
at this. It's just that, I'm maybe a little sharper with my methods than is universally applicable.
Are hammers sharp, Jonny, or are they just big and heavy?
Claw hammers are, yeah. That's why you get a claw hammer rather than a sledgehammer, because then it's
Here's a random
versatile.
insight. Do you have any idea how many claw hammers Jonny has tried to work into scripts over the years? You're claw hammer mad.
They're just really like that. We don't have guns over here,
Jonny
and
loves claw
knives
hammers.
aren't actually as useful for murder as all that, because like the thing is, if you're trying to kill someone and you've got a knife and you don't get them immediately, it's kind of hard.
How are you going to build a shed afterwards? Like, I just
no,
don't
no,
think
no,
your
no,
argument
no.
holds
Like,
up, Jonny.
no, you smack someone in the head with a claw hammer, and even if it's not an instant death, like they're going to struggle a lot more to stop you continuing the job with the claw hammer in a way that's not necessarily true with a knife.
It's okay. We can agree that you're wrong.
Also, like the thing is, walking down the street with a knife, questions. Walking down the street with a claw hammer, DIY.
I'm not I'm not opening this particular can of worms right now, if only because you'll suggest that I use a claw hammer to do so.
They're not actually very good for opening cans.
I knew you wouldn't be able to let it go.
So Olivia, I have a question for you.
Yeah, shoot.
What the hell is that picture behind you?
No, don't tell us anything. I want no
What is
context.
it?
I love it. It's the creepiest shit I've seen on stream in ages, and I'm 100% here for it.
It looks
Thank
like
you.
it looks like you're streaming from a seminary.
I made some design choices about what I wanted to be seen, but actually, I am streaming from our home office, and this is where my dad does a lot of his writing. And this is the original painting that was used for the cover of his novel, The Mason.
Oh, fun!
So he, yeah, like many years ago, wrote that novel. It's really good. It's on Goodreads.
Oh, cool.
And so this is his main character, Martin, bleeding out after being bitten by a dog. And there was something about the typewriter and the lamp and the picture
I love it.
that I was like,
it was absolutely correct. I've just been looking at that picture for the last like hour and a half, being like,
waiting for it to move, right?
Yeah.
Waiting for it to move.
Yeah, it certainly gives it a vibe, doesn't it? And the red of the wall too. And I need you guys to understand that everything in this room is red. The ceiling is red. The doors are red. There is quite a vibe in here.
Yeah.
Oh, so I mean, okay, challenge to chat right off the bat. Then you have in this single like encaptured stream set easily enough for a statement for a Magnus Archives RPG game. Like easily, you have all the components there and then some. I challenge chat to come up with the most horrifying scenario via the RPG using only this red room bleeding out pictured typewriter combo, because I'm here for it. Aesthetically, it's very strong.
I'm so pleased by this. I really did this morning when I was deciding where I was going to set up to stream. I was really excited about this background, so I'm very happy that it has distracted you both thus.
Yeah, absolutely.
Teri, I believe you are.
Yeah, I think we're gonna call the end of this section. Jonny, Alex, thank you so much for joining us, answering questions from folks in chat. The next part we're gonna have Charles and Tammie from Team MCG join us, and they will be showcasing some of the stuff that has come in and talking about some of the products from the campaign. I believe we actually have some stickers on hand already, so we're quite excited about it. Yeah,
that sounds like it's going to be way more helpful and useful for the audience than just Jonny and I rambling on randomly.
Oh, that reminds me. Back Tangled in the Web, highest tier. You might say, I don't have that money, and I say, not with that attitude, you don't. The key is neither you nor your food. Like the thing is, you can role play hungry. Is all I'll say. It's a very flexible hobby. It can be done without shelter. It can be done without food.
Don't let him out.
Done without electricity if necessary. You
keep letting him in public. I don't know what you thought would happen.
Well, thank you so much, Alex. Charles, Tammie, why don't you jump in and throw it to you?
Hello.
There we go.
All right, there we go. Now we have Charles and Tammie. As you can see, Charles also in the red room, although perhaps a little bit less decked out. And
Relegated to a corner.
Well, I was super enjoying the chat between Jonny and Alex and you and Teri. That was amazing. Like, I don't want it to stop. Like, how much time do we have? Like, can we just go on and on and on?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was really enjoyable. It was a great conversation. I learned some more fun things. The writing advice they gave was really potent, especially with regards to, how to build up horror. I think that Link numbers that I have forgotten asked some really good questions about how to effectively introduce characters to the genre and to Magnus Archives Role-Playing Game. For this second section of our live stream, which will probably not be an hour and a half, we have Tammie and Charles Ryan. Charles Ryan is the COO for Monty Cook Games. He does marketing. He put together this beautiful crowdfunding campaign page that you are hopefully watching from. Keeps the lights on, pretty much. And conversely, Tammie Ryan keeps the wheels spinning. I have often said that her job can be most likened to herding cats. She is the general manager at MCG. She keeps everything flowing nicely and makes sure that everything is completed at the right time, especially fulfillment. If you backed the original campaign and have gotten some of your rewards so far, you have Tammie to thank for that.
True fact. Yep.
So, right now is a great time for anyone who has questions about non-design related things. So production, again, fulfillment, if you have questions about what rewards timeline looks like, what they are going to look like, if you have been thinking about adding an add-on but want to hear more about what it is, please let us know about those questions, because these guys are really your people for getting these things into your hands. And I think we even have some something fun to show you guys as well, a little bit of show and tell for this section of the stream.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Look at that.
Yeah, no, I think Olivia is introing us into a couple of these guys here. So
Wait, go slower.
Art director who is actually behind the scenes on this stream a bit. Is he and Javier, you've all seen the various stickers that have come through, the sticker designs that have come through and the updates and whatnot. These are actually some, honest to goodness, prototypes of them. And sort of a showcase of how they might appear in your life.
Yeah, we're really excited about the stickers, and I am particularly excited to see the I made a statement sticker come to life. That was one that I really, really enjoy.
Are you talking about the one that says, be nice to me, I made a statement, or with the little owl, or are you talking about the one that has the statement form?
Very good question. Particularly right now, while I'm excited for both of them, I'm very excited to put the I made a statement at the Magnus Institute, and all I got was this lousy sticker and crippling fear. I'm very excited to put that on my laptop.
Yeah.
Well, as we wait for some questions to come in, do either of you guys have anything you want to talk about in regards to the Magnus Archives crowdfunding campaign, how it's doing, things about the campaign that we have to talk about, fulfillment stuff?
Yeah, I will. I'll just start by saying thank you to the backers who have backed this campaign so far and done such a great job of spreading the word, reposting our messages, posting their own messages, stuff like that. Because I mean, it's been a really fantastic campaign. Really cool. We're down to just over a day and a half left in it, it's probably trending really close to like $1 million. And there's a very, very short list of crowdfunding campaigns for role-playing games that have ever gone that far. So we've unlocked all these really cool stretch goals, done all these cool things for the Magnus Archives RPG based on the enthusiasm that the backers have brought to it. So thank you guys so much for your support. We love the way your support lets us make these really cool games that are as broad and have as many cool features as are allowed by the stretch goals that we reach and whatnot. So it's always fun. Every campaign is fun to run, but this one's been really, really cool watching it soar the way it has. And that's totally down to the backers.
Absolutely. I second that 100%.
We do have some shareable graphics that we have put up on the community page. They're available through our social media platforms. So if you are watching this and you are incredibly excited about getting a really, really strong finish, and maybe we have some exciting stretch goals in the future that we really, really want to get to. Sharing those graphics is a great way to do it because it lets people know that not only did you support the campaign, but you want to see it grow and do better.
Yeah. So as Liv mentioned, the warm-up act, the guys that came on beforehand to kind of like, get the audience engaged and whatnot, those guys, they were talking principally from the creative aspect of it. Tam and I work a little bit less on the creative side of things, but we do, as you said, Liv, kind of bring these things to you both through the campaigns and other marketing efforts, and then also at the end when the actual product is done. Yeah, bring us your questions or comments about any of that stuff.
Well, great news. I have questions.
Sweet.
Broken Witch asks, what can you tell us about the XP fear cards? I'm new to the RPG and Cypher system, but not the podcast. I missed the first crowdfunding campaign, so I'm happy to be here for this one.
Sure. Okay, so I'll start kind of on the basic level, which is in the Cypher system. Experience points, XP, are measured in ones. So if you play Dungeons and Dragons or something like this and you kill a monster and you get 1300 XP for it, that's not the way it happens in the Cypher system. In the Cypher system, when you discover things in the Magnus Archives, specifically when you do things that help protect our world and whatnot, face the fears, you'll get XP, and it's one at a time. You'll get one for doing this, you'll get one for doing that. The other great thing that happens is something called a GM intrusion, which is where the GM can throw in a plot twist that catches you off guard or does something that sort of throws a wrench into the player's plans or heightens the tension in a scene or whatnot like that. And they will, again, reward you with a couple of XP. And you can use them to advance your character, but you also use them to have your control over the story a little bit, to say like, oh, I just made a really crappy roll, but this is important. I'm going to spend an XP and re-roll that die. Or, is there anybody at the university that we could contact to ask about this? And you can say, oh, I'm going to do a player intrusion and say my cousin works at the university and they have access to the metallurgy lab, or whatever it is, right? You can use these XP as a way to have your input into the narrative as well as advancing your character. But the upshot of all of that is that XP actually exchanges hands in the game. You can even give XP to another player. Another player desperately needs to re-roll a die. You can spend one of your XP. So you don't need it. You can keep track of it on your character sheet, but having a token of that XP is really handy. The GM can actually hand you some sort of token and say, okay, you've just earned 2 XP. Here's the tokens. And cards work really well just because they're handy at a game table. You can tuck them into your book to keep your XP, physically in your book when you go home between game sessions, whatever. They just work out really well. So we make an XP deck. That's all it is. It's a set of tokens. The cards have really nice art and so on and so forth. And there's a standard XP deck for the Magnus Archives that's part of that bundle of supplements that you can get as an add-on. It's in production right now. It's actually about to board. Tammie is about to get on a ship, right? And be shipped to us. Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah, so on our way to our warehouse pretty soon, and we'll have it on the MCG shop. You could buy it there and so on and so forth. The XP Deck of Fears is, we thought, this was a suggestion of Javier, who is one of our graphic designers, works with Bear to make our products look so awesome and is responsible for some of these things. So Javier has suggested, wouldn't it be cool if we had a set of XP cards that were just themed on the fears? And that's what it is. It's just 14 more XP cards, but instead of just sort of being a selection of cool art that we picked to put on different cards, it's one of these cards for each of the fears. That doesn't actually mean anything. It doesn't, like, you're not going to play this card because this fear was in play or anything like that. It's just, they're just more tokens. But we're using some of the fear iconography that Javier developed for the Lightner book plates and combined with artwork from, like, on the reverse side of the card, artwork from the book that sort of relates to what that fear is all about. So yeah, it's a kind of a neat exclusive thing to do for backers of this campaign that we think is kind of fun and cool. And then you use it at your game table. You don't need, you could use just these 14 XP cards. But 14, you probably need more tokens than that. So, and if you have the XP deck, the regular XP deck, you can just mix these cards in with it. I hope that answers the question.
I think so. I do have quite a few questions here about add-ons and stickers. So okay. I'm going to go ahead and ask you guys the sticker questions just to group them together.
Okay. So
Mivd asks, are the stickers going to be redeemable with other physical items, or is everything physical shipped separately?
when we do a campaign like this where we're doing multiple books, those will ship at different times as the books get done. Over the course of probably one book, and then a few months later, another book, and a couple months later, the third book, as they go through the pipeline. The other rewards that are kind of made along the way, like the sticker set, we will time that to be with an existing physical reward. So that when you, like probably the sticker set, I'm imagining, will probably come with the first book. And so when we're ready to ship the first book, we will also have the sticker books ready so that you don't have to pay shipping twice. You just pay the shipping that one time. And you don't have to ship if you want to save money on shipping and have all your rewards shipped at one time, you can also let the rewards sort of sit in your account until they're all ready to ship.
Yeah, I do just want to emphasize there that we fulfill through the MCG shop, which means that you get to choose when your rewards are shipped to you after they become available through the crowdfunding campaign. So we will always let you know when a new reward is available. But if you want to save everything to ship in one shipment or just 2 big shipments, you can. And or if you want to get everything as they become available, you can do that as well. But like Charles says, we will probably try to make it so that you can redeem the stickers next to something else a bit bigger. Speaking of stickers and their timeline, I know Sparrow Sage asks, I know the books are set to come out next year in 2026, but I'm curious to know if you guys have a timeline for the stickers are going to get sent out. It sounds like the stickers are going to get sent out early-ish in the timeline. Do you have any more info?
Like I said, we'll probably do it with the first book, so that the alternative is we might, so the stickers, as we see, we've already made prototypes of many of them. The stickers are not hard to get made. They're fairly quick. They don't have a long lead time. Deck products have to go overseas to get made, so they have a long lead time in that regard. Books, have to be written, edited, laid out. They have a long process that they go through. The stickers are actually fairly quick, so it's not out of the question. We could consider doing the stickers when we ship early rewards, such as people who are upgrading the core book where they get the free core book in PDF, but they upgrade to a physical book. It's possible we can get the stickers done in time for that. What do you think, Tam?
I agree. I think we could probably do that. I want to make one clarification, Liv. I apologize. I just want to put it out there. Teri is the wizard of the schedule. So she is in control of all of that. And I just, it was one thing I think you mentioned as part of something that I do, and I don't want to ever take credit for something I don't do, but yes. And then you two took probably the only question that I could answer, which is about fulfillment. But yes, absolutely. We can probably work all of that together.
Yeah.
Well, I have good news for you. We have more questions. So this one is about, sorry?
I was just going to say, I believe we also had decided to do the stickers in self-print mode too, didn't we?
Yeah, we're gonna do them digitally. We're gonna do them as like PNGs. So if you use any kind of a digital notebooking system or something like that you could import stickers into, that sort of thing, you would have the PNGs of the stickers to do that with. And we announced that with the last update.
Right.
So, Mint also asks, just double checking, because I'm not sure if I'm understanding right. Is Dig a fully written book?
Dig is a complete version of the book Dig. Now, if you know the lore, the book Dig doesn't have an awful lot of words in it. But yes, it is fully written. And if you are backing at a level or getting the add-on where you get the Lightner book Dig, you will get a replica of the Lightner book Dig, like the whole inside and out. It is Dig. Yep.
But to be just immediately clear, it is not a novel. You are not receiving a story. You are receiving a replica item.
Right, and it will contain exactly as many words as the Lightner book Dig contains. That just doesn't happen to be very many words.
Yep. Alrighty here. More add-on questions, shall we?
Yeah.
Full Moon Umber asks, when the Kickstarter is done, backer kit, will all the add-ons be gone forever, or are there plans for some of them to appear elsewhere? I really want to get the campaign journal specifically, but I can't spend that much right now.
Right, yeah, so some of the things, many of the things, the campaign journal is actually an item that we did as part of the original crowdfunding campaign for when the role-playing game was originally crowdfunded. And when we have them, they actually, I think, are arriving at our warehouse here today or maybe yesterday. Tam, do you know?
They arrived. We
arrived.
received them
Okay, so
already.
we just got them, and we will be fulfilling them to backers of the original campaign real soon, and then it will be available on the MCG shop. So when you see things that say they're a campaign exclusive, like the
Dig.
like Dig and the Lightner dust jackets and a couple other things, those will not be widely available elsewhere. But the things that are sort of conventional products, those are typically available as they become available. They'll become available on the MCG shop and elsewhere. Yeah.
And typically, this is not this is a bit of a blanket statement, but typically game use items that are non-deluxe versions tend to be widely available.
Yeah.
It's the deluxe versions of those items slash the sort of more like props and replica items. Those are the ones that tend to be more campaign exclusive.
Right.
Which is why you also see like there is an existing XP deck for the Magnus Archives, but the 14 card Fear XP deck is going to be crowdfunding campaign exclusive to this campaign.
Right. Yep.
Just to clarify. We have a follow-up question from Sparrow Sage 1. If someone backed the $20 tier, so only digital products, how much do you think the average shipping cost for the stickers would be, since they would be the only physical item sent over? Tammie, do you want to take this one?
Thanks, Liv. So if you're in the United States, that would be, we charge a flat rate of $9 for shipping. So if you're outside of the United States, then obviously it would be like the cheapest first class type of shipping. Yeah, that's the basic answer.
I also did want to go back real quick to what we were just saying before about exclusive items and emphasize that Lightners, so we did a Guest Risk Spider, now we're doing Dig. Lightners are the #1 item that are going to be campaign exclusive. If you do not get a Lightner in this time, we cannot make them widely available after this time. So we all know how cool the Guest or Mr. Spider book is, and if you're feeling a little bit FOMO about that, Dig is now your option.
Yeah.
Right, because we print,
Go on, Tom.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say, we take the numbers from the crowdfunding campaign and print pretty much to that, allowing for some overages.
Yeah, and I will just to put all the cards on the table, we do allow for some overages, because you never know if a case is going to get hit by a forklift or something like that, and if we needed 2,000 for 2,000 backers and a case gets ruined, so we'll print a couple hundred extras just to be extra sure that we have enough for everybody. Sometimes when we're at a convention like Gen Con or something like that, we'll have a few of those exclusive items available because we know we have extras at that stage. So it's not to say that like you will never, ever see a chance to get something like Dig. Just to say that we don't have any plans for it to ever be available anyplace else. And if it ever does become available through that or through some special sale or something like that, it would be in very limited quantities.
I did want to add something. So basically, our promise to backers is that we guarantee for 1 year, and we actually add a little bit to that. So we actually probably, up to like 13 or 14 months guarantee that we will have the item that you have backed in stock, right? And I think a year is really fair. So if there's something that if like, for instance, the Lightner is what you've backed for, make sure to redeem that within the year that the coupon is good for. So.
Right. And to be clear, that's a year from when it comes out, not a year.
Correct. Not from a year from the campaign or anything like that. So like from the time that we say it's ready to fulfill, then you have a year. And we give you extra time. As a matter of fact, I mean, we do ridiculous things. Like if we still have it in stock and it's been 5 years, we can sometimes still make that happen for backers. But don't be that person. Redeem it within the year.
Yeah.
And then I did also want to mention that for our backers who are not in the United States, we have a fulfillment house in England that ships to you, so that you're not paying customs and that you're paying a much lower cost for shipping. And we have a fulfillment house in Australia for all of our South Pacific customers, so that you're the same thing. You don't pay the customs, and it ships a lot faster and more reliably too than from, international from the US.
Yeah, and then just on that note, if you do have an issue with your crowdfunding redemption, we have a really, 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 really helpful page on the MCG website. It's montycookgames.com. That is a step-by-step tutorial on how to redeem all your rewards, and it is a very, very helpful guide. But if you read that and you're still having an issue, you're welcome to reach out to our customer support system. Although I always remind people that our customer support system is 2 people, only one of whom is full-time. So if you do reach out, we just really appreciate if you've done sort of all of the self-help you can before that. But we are always happy to help you get all your rewards, or as many as possible if it's past that 1-year mark. Okay, let's go back.
Kudos. I was just going to say kudos to Jennifer and to Nora and also to you, Olivia. You guys do a great job with customer service. And it can be overwhelming at times because of the number of backers that we've had for the Magnus Archives. But kudos to all of you for keeping the people, the backers, happy. Oh, and I apologize. I should also mention Kate, because Kate does a lot of work in the comments and making sure that if somebody doesn't know how to get a reward, that they get it.
Well, we have a couple more questions here about add-ons.
Okay.
Someone asks, this is a bit more conceptual, but how much input did Jonny and Alex have in the creation of add-ons, like the XP deck, for example, or other props? Are there any add-ons? That's question number 1. Okay. Question number 2 were there any add-ons that were especially fun to design or brainstorm?
Yeah, I mean, those 2 questions really go together nicely because of the process. And the process really is we sort of sit down and months ahead of the campaign, and we talk about what does the game need, what benefits play, what would be cool things to have, what are the cool things that we would like to have, and then these inform sort of both our add-ons and our stretch goals as we go along. We come up with the list of things that we like. We pitch it to Jonny and Alex and Callum and the crew at Rusty Quill and say, hey, this is what we have in mind. They come back with ideas. They say, well, this idea won't work because we don't like it, or we're doing something else that would overlap with that, or what have you. Or they come back and say, yeah, but have you considered doing this idea or whatnot? And we kind of go back and forth on that. Off the top of my head, you're asking me to think back into November, December when we were having these conversations, and that seems like forever ago. Yeah, I can't recall what might have come from them, where they said, I have an idea and brought it to us, versus what came from us. That was just too far back for my brain to go. But yeah, it's a collaborative process, and we go back and forth through it. But at the end of the day, what we most want to make are the things, like I said before, the things that the game needs, things that will really benefit play and the book that drives the book content for sure, but other elements to it. So that's how Enter the Archives came about, as a thing that everybody is getting. It's sort of a free reward. Whether you're getting digital rewards, it'll be digital. If you get physical rewards, it'll be physical. It's a little booklet. Jonny and Alex talked about it a little bit at that stage, where it's specifically designed for if you're a Magnus Archive, you got the game because you're a fan of the podcast, but none of the players in your group really know it, and you're like, how do I ease these players into this setting? It's designed to do that because, as Olivia said, as we were at conventions, we were at GameOCon last year, which is pretty much where the game premiered. We were at PAX Unplugged back in December, and you're talking to gamers about it. People are playing the game, and you're pitching it to people that are in your booth, and they want to know how to play it. And that question came up a lot. How do I bring in players that don't know it? I love this property, but my players don't. How do I get? And that gave us the idea for Enter the Archives, because again, as was happened in the discussion with Jonny and Alex, it was like that's not a problem. That's actually the best way to play the game in some ways. So that's what kind of led to that. So yeah, anyway, we go through, we think about the different products we want to offer. We think about which ones fit into the core offering, which ones make good add-ons, which ones might be good stretch goals, and build from there.
I think this campaign as well, the stickers have been incredibly fun to design. and to talk about. It has been so fun, not only coming up with ideas for each stretch goal, but also to read comments for ideas and get to incorporate them of people saying, I would love to see this sticker, and being able to build off of that.
Right.
And go ahead.
I was going to say that it's really great that you bring that up, because the sticker was part of the process when we were thinking about this, of like, how do we make sure that every time we do a stretch goal, everybody's part of it, right? It's not just like, so like, you know, if we do a stretch goal and we're going to add a poster map to one of the books, right? Well, that's great for the people that are getting that book. It's particularly great for the people that are getting it in print, right? But if you're a PDF backer, or if you're backing for one book or whatever, not so much of a thrill. If it's something that upgrades the dust jacket set, right? Like if you're not backing at a level that gets you that, or don't have it as an add-on, you don't care. How do we make sure that we, like, every time we do a stretch goal, it's exciting for every single backer? And that was that conversation that we had, I can't remember exactly whose ideas, it might have been yours, Liv. Whose idea it was, but like the idea of like having this set of stickers, it was a great idea. And I think it's made the campaign really fun to run. And people seem to really enjoy it from the comments and the updates, and a lot of people seem to really enjoy it. Social media.
And we didn't go into this campaign with 24 sticker designs. A lot of it has been reading the comments, building off it, coming up with ideas, all that kind of stuff. A lot of the designs that you guys see, we only sort of finalized them or made a version of them in the last 2 days, because we've been taking feedback, and that's been really fun. And then it's been really fun to see the polls. I think one of our very first polls ended in 1 vote difference. It was 800 votes or 400 votes to 401, I think. And literally just 1 point difference, which was beautiful. I mean, genuinely so much fun to watch from our end and to get to be a part of. So thank you guys for doing those polls. We thought they were going to be a lot of fun, and you guys made them a lot of fun. So thank you so much for participating in that.
Yeah.
I also wanted to add that, we've had the privilege of working on we've worked on a couple of licensed properties. We specifically, I was thinking of Old Gods, and then of course the Magnus Archives. And for both of those properties, many of us on the team, we were fans way before we thought about a role-playing game, right? Like, so when you're talking about making props for it and stuff like that, we're really super excited, because we're like, oh my gosh, so like I've been a fan of this for years, and since since it began. And so now what would I want? What would be the coolest thing at my gaming table? And so, and of course, then fan feedback and listening to the polls. It's just been so much fun, right? For the whole team, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a really fun campaign to run. I've got 2 more questions here, unless we get any more from the chat. They are both from Link5963. One of them is from this person's players. She wants to know if we can know more about what's actually in the prop bundle before they buy it as an add-on.
So the short answer is no. Because the prop bundle, for the most part, is intended to be used, like, you can make use of it in a lot of different ways. There's not there are definitely some props that are specific to the item, the adventures in Make Your Statement. And we also added the print versions of the statements and a couple other things along the way for this campaign. But a lot of it is also designed to be pretty generic, that you can make use of in a variety of forms. We just talked about how the GM notebook, the GM journal, just arrived in our warehouse yesterday. The prop set is also, the components of the prop set have arrived very recently, and they're starting to get, the prop set in this campaign is a second prop set. We also did a prop set in the first campaign. The elements of that first campaign's prop set have just arrived in our warehouse and are being assembled into the packets for fulfillment to backers and then for sale in our store. And I can tell you that set has it has business cards in it. It has things like a Break and Hope Bill of Lading. It's got newspaper articles that are torn from a newspaper that give you like hooks for adventures. And it's got a wide variety of things, but they're designed for you to be able to take and work into your campaign however you see fit. So they're not necessarily about the specific adventures like that are in the core book. And the same will be true for the second prop set. And just to give you a bit of context, the first prop set had about, I don't know, 25-ish individual items, I think. I think that's right. And so the second one would be pretty comparable.
I'm gonna go ahead and take this next question from link 5963. This is if you do the pay all at once option versus the pay for over time, is it also charged in the 7 days or charged at the end? Let me clarify. So the pay over 4 is for pledge levels of $150 or more. And it is split into 4 equal segments over the 4 months after the campaign ends. So if your campaign ends in January, you're going to be paying 25% of your total backing cost, $150 or more, in February, March, April, through the next 4 months. It is not the same as if you were to do charge all at once, then we would go through and charge your card at the end when the late pledge store comes down, or the pre-order store comes down. Think that clarifies. I just wanted to make sure because I just want to make sure I answer that question. So the $150 limit can be from a single pledge tier, or it can be from a tier plus add-ons. Either way is fine, but BackerKit just doesn't have any functionality to go underneath that threshold for the pay over 4 or pay over time option.
Okay. If I can go back real quick to the prop set, I also want to throw in that there's a PDF. If you're backing for the prop set here, you get the PDF of it as well, which means that you can, it has the advantage that you can print out as many copies of props as you want. The prop set, physical prop set, has the advantage that like the newspaper clippings are actually torn out of actual newspaper, the business cards are business card stock, you know, that sort of thing.
Yep, they're really,
And
really
the prop set.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say the prop set is one of those things that we have found over time is eminently usable at the table, right? Because it, like I said, we're all gamers. We all have given input into what we would like to use at our games and what would be fun to give out as the GM, what would be fun to receive as a player. And you can get really creative, right? Like because you get it as a PDF, you can print more, right? So like you could mail it to your players. You know, I mean, how cool would that be to receive something in the actual physical mail, getting that, you know, and you can also distribute it right at the table or electronically. There's lots of ways to use the prop set. So I am a fan.
One of the very, because we've done prop sets for all sorts of campaigns before. One of the props we ended up doing for, I believe, the Invisible Sun campaign was some newspaper clippings, but they actually came, the printer printed all the clippings on one sheet, and then we, by hand, all of the people who worked at the warehouse had a, you know, you think of like a ruler, like a straight edge that you can rip something with. We had one that was a ripped design. And so we would manually hand rip all of those newspaper props into their individual sections using this, you know, designed kind of not straight ruler.
It's actually, it's called a ripper.
A ripper.
Yep. And it's funny you say that because that is actually happening right now with the assembly of the prop set for the first prop set for the Magnus Archives.
Yep, that's what I was going to say. Is that's something that we're going to have people at our warehouse do. So that is.
I've done that in a couple of years. Might go back for the nostalgia.
Yes.
I mean, it's a fun way to, you know, zone out, listen to some music, but
Or a podcast.
Or a podcast. The Screen Queen 1997 says, would the team ever consider making a GM screen? I've played a few TTRPGs like Dark Heresy, Curse of Strahd, D&D, but this system is new to me. It's my understanding that a GM screen may not be necessary for gameplay, but I feel naked without my notes. Also, I just crave more of Javier's art. Very valid.
That's a great question. We have done GM screens for some of our games, but we also sometimes for some of our games, including the Magnus Archives, we do a playmat instead. The Cypher system doesn't have an awful amount of charts and tables that you need to reference to. And as a matter of fact, I'll be perfectly honest, when we've made GM screens, sometimes the interior, the GM side, is kind of embarrassingly sparse because you just don't refer to a lot of really big, dense tables like you do in some game systems. So for the Magnus Archives, there is forthcoming, also in production, also just about to get onto a ship with the XP deck, a playmat. And it serves very much the same purpose. It doesn't hide your notes. So that part, if you feel naked without that shield, it doesn't give you that. But what it does is it's got beautiful art at the table. It's this really nice, like a mouse pad style material. It's pretty big. And it's great for rolling your dice on. And then the information that you reference is around the edge. And a lot of that information is just as useful to the players as it is to the GM. So by putting it out there where everybody can see it, it's actually a little bit more useful than having it in on a GM screen. So probably because we have a playmat for this game, we probably will not also do a GM screen. They sort of fill the same niche. I will say the GM screen has the fabulous cover art on it, or excuse me, the playmat has a fabulous cover art on it by Roberto Pituro, who's done so much great art for us over the years. And if you go to that update, there was like 2 or 3 updates ago, it was about all the art and the art book and stuff like that. You can see where there's a detail that shows like, a close up of that piece of art. That piece of art is filled with really, really cool details. I just love it. And that's on a nice big playmat at the center of your table. So it looks really cool.
I really enjoy that piece of art because at first glance, there is like I don't mean this pejoratively, but it's almost a little bit mundane, like it's a coffee cup, it's some notebooks, it's whatever. But when you look at it, it is just chock full of those like, when little secrets. It's a really cool piece of art.
And then the art, of course, Magnus Archives has like it's a desktop with a bunch of stuff on it, and it's got a tape player and a tape. And we did a incentive for the original campaign that we actually made cassettes. And Roberto designed, just as part of that piece of art, he designed the branding for like the cassette tapes and the cassette tape players that has that sort of retro look to it. And you can't really see it here. The little tag that says property of the Magnus Institute kind of covers it up, but you can kind of see that it's Gauss was the brand that he made up for it and stuff like that. And like it's all consistent throughout. Sorry, this is a tangent. It doesn't really answer the GM screen question, but
I know, but I do want to say one thing about the GM screen when we get a chance.
Go.
So I hear what they're saying. You do kind of sometimes want to kind of keep some secrets to yourself. And so there are companies out there, like I believe it was Hammer Dog Games, that they make these cool GM screens that are just the plastic parts, and Charles can probably speak more to that, but it has like slots where you can put in your own notes and your own art. And so like the players facing side, you could print out art for them, and you could maybe use the stickers and stuff like that. And then on your side, you can print out any notes you want. So like it could change from game to game, right? And I like those GM screens because they even make them in a smaller height so that you're not hiding quite as much, but you then keep your creature deck or your XP cards or just other handwritten notes that are sort of kind of hidden behind that. So that is one solution to the problem of wanting to have a GM screen when we don't have one specifically for this campaign. You can sort of make your own.
And I see that there's somebody in the comments saying they have one of those Hammer Dog screens and how good they are.
Well, I actually have 2 questions from Sparrow Sage 1. One is a sort of fun question. I'm going to leave that for just a second. The other one is much more tactical. What currency is being used to charge people at the campaign end?
So the campaign is running in US dollars. As far as I know, that's how BackerKit does it. I don't know if they have any way that you get charged in your own currency. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's a question that's above my pay grade, I guess, because I don't know the answer to it. But I could find out and come back to the comments. As far as I know, when you set up a campaign, you basically say this is going to be in US dollars or Great British pounds or whatever. And then I think that is the currency that you are charged in. But I can verify that.
But hey, great news for foreign supporters. The US dollar is plummeting. You're getting more for your money every day that goes between now and when cards are charged.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. Well, give us your fun question.
This is for the 3 of us. Do you guys have a favorite episode from TMA? And if so, which episode and why? I'll give you guys a minute to think. I kind of already mentioned mine earlier in the stream. I love horror, And so to me, my favorite episode is the episode that I like, it kept me up at night and I'm so scared I can't stop thinking about it. Like I love it because it scared me so badly. So I think that has to be probably Piecemeal from me, which is like we talked about earlier. It's an episode where a couple sort of thugs get involved in witchcraft and end up finding themselves slowly being cut to pieces, but them healing immediately afterwards. So it's like, they stub their toe really bad and their toe comes off, but then they look and it's a scar and they haven't actually it's as if they haven't had a toe for a long time. And let me tell you, that episode is in my thoughts. How often do you think about the Roman Empire joke? I think about Piecemeal every day. Every day I think about Piecemeal. It is haunting and I really enjoy it. What about you guys? Charles, you think of one?
That's a really, really tough call because there's so many good episodes, both individually and as part of the arc story. I don't remember the name of it, but the one with the meat grinder, I think, is probably the one that kind of had that impact on me. There's something about an artifact that causes you to behave in a way that you like, and you don't even know you're doing it. It kind of reminds me of the movie Oculus, where the mirror is causing people think that they're doing one thing, and it turns out they suddenly realize they're doing something else because they're under some sort of influence that's kind of creating illusions in their mind. The way the meat grinder did the same thing, just really, really stuck with me. But holy mackerel, I mean, there's so many good ones like that are about an individual thing, and there's so many elements of the arc story that great moments in the arc story. What about you, Tim?
So I don't want to be lame, but it's literally season 1, episode 1, Anglerfish. Like that, it's what hooked me to the podcast. It's the one I've listened to over and over. Like the idea that, because you're going home from the pub, you don't really think that you're prey, right? Like that's not how we humans behave. It's very, very rare that that we have that feeling of being like stalked and all of that. And so Anglerfish to me is brilliant.
Yeah.
And then I did want to make one clarification on the previous question, talking about whether you're charged in pounds or the currency of your country. Is we do have a couple of employees who are international, and one of them has said that they are charged in their country's currency. So I will still verify that with BackerKit, but it does look like that whatever your currency is, wherever you are in the world, that is the currency that you'll be charged. So it must take place in the back end of BackerKit, where they simply do the currency conversion there.
Makes sense. And by the way, anglerfish also, yeah, that's another good one because of this idea that there's a predator among us that looks like a person and can kind of like fool you, but it isn't. But yeah, that's just, creepy stuff.
The issue is that there's just so many good episodes, and personally, I'm actually a really big enjoyer of the more episodic stuff. This is actually true just in my life. I'm a big enjoyer of the earlier season stuff where you haven't made connections yet. You still don't know what's going on. There is an overarching story that probably exists, but you don't know it yet. So pretty much anything from season 1, I think is pretty fantastic. The whole podcast.
I agree with you. Mm-hmm.
Well, it kind of seems like I'm out of questions. The comments seem to be slowing down a little bit. So unless you guys have anything you want to add, this might be a great time to say goodbye.
Sounds good to me. I just end as I started and thank all the backers for continuing to spread the word and make this campaign soar the way that it has. The response to this campaign has been great, and really, really, really appreciate your support and helping us make the games be everything they can be through unlocking all the stretch goals and whatnot.
Big thank you we had several people ask a couple questions, and that was awesome just to hear everything you guys had to say. I haven't been looking too closely at the chat, but if you are one of those people who has just been really into this opportunity to talk about your favorite stuff with people you hopefully enjoyed listening to, please also do remember that your participation makes or breaks a campaign. Not only situations like this, but also by sharing stuff online. I run the MCG socials, so every time you guys like one of our posts or retweet something, I get to see that, and it's very exciting. So please feel free. Steal my graphics. You can even steal my captions. Go talk about us online. We'd appreciate it.
Yeah. And if you're
Absolutely.
looking,
And
go ahead, Tim.
no, I wanted to mention Cypher Unlimited. If you are looking for a place to connect with other players of the Cypher system, if you're a new GM for the Cypher system, the Cypher Unlimited, and we'll try to get a link up for that a little bit later, but the Cypher Unlimited Discord is an amazing place full of friendly, helpful people. They will run a game for you. They will answer questions. They will give you helpful advice. They will become friends.
Yeah, it's a fantastic community, and you can go to the campaign page right now. Go down to toward the very bottom where the bios are for the team and whatnot, and there's a link to the Cypher Unlimited right there.
Great.
But it's a great community. One of the most upbeat, helpful, and welcoming gaming communities you'll find.
And the guys that run it, they're all right too. And they're totally not listening in the chat. All right, well, without further ado, thank you guys so much for joining us. We did not expect this to be a 2.5-hour stream, but we are having a lot of fun chatting, and it was a really, really great opportunity to get to answer some of your questions. And let's have a great last 30 or so hours.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.